In Deuteronomy chapter 7, where our scripture reading is taken from. I'll read it again. Know therefore that the Lord thy God, He is God, the what? The faithful God. How is He faithful? He keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love Him and keep His commandments to 1,000 generations. The Bible, all throughout the Bible, God is presented as the covenant-keeping God, the faithful God, the God who makes promises, promise made, promise kept. And today we're celebrating communion service, which is a tangible proof of God's faithfulness to you and to me. You know, in ancient times, there was this practice. Imagine living in the ancient times and two kingdoms are warring against each other, and one of the ways that they would often secure peace is one of the kings would give his own son to the other kingdom, and this, by giving his son, it was the tangible proof that the other side was willing to keep their promise, to stick with their promise, because if not, they would lose their son, the heir to the throne. And so this was a practice that was done many times, and Ellen White picks up on this practice, and in Selected Messages, Volume 1, page 258, she says, in earthly courts, when a king would make his greatest pledge to assure men of his truth, he gives his child as a hostage to be redeemed on the fulfillment of his promise. And behold, what a pledge of the Father's faithfulness. For when he would assure men of the immutability of his counsel, he gave his only begotten Son to come to earth. In the words of the prophet Isaiah, remember the prophet Isaiah, in Isaiah chapter 9, he said, unto us a son is born, unto us a son is given. Continuing to read from the quotation, the Son, He gave His only begotten Son to come to earth, to take the nature of man, not only for a brief years of life, but to retain His nature in the heavenly courts, an everlasting pledge of the faithfulness of God. Oh, the depths of the riches both of the wisdom and the love of God. Behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called sons of God. Is God faithful? The proof is in the giving of His Son. And then what I would like to take our minds to next is Romans. The book of Romans. Paul is going to take up this line of thinking. In chapter 8, he's talking about life in the Spirit and all the things that the Spirit empowers us to do and all that God is doing on our behalf. He speaks of the Spirit making intercession for us and helping us to pray since we don't know how we should pray. He goes on then talking about how all things work together for good to those who love God. And then on verse 31, Romans chapter 8, verse 31, he asks the question, what shall we then say to these things? All the things that he's previously talked to them about. If God be for us, who can be against us? If God has done all these things for us, who can be against us? And then he says, He that spared not his own Son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things? God has already proven his faithfulness to us in giving us his Son. It's what we're celebrating today. Communion service. It's a reminder. We do this in remembrance of him. We do this remembering that God gave his Son. God made a promise to Adam and Eve. God made a promise to Abraham. God made a promise to David. God kept that promise. When his Son came, lived on this earth, took on human nature, and gave his life as a sacrifice. God has given us abundant proof of his faithfulness. And with that assurance, having the greatest tangible proof of God's faithfulness to us, to you, to me, Paul says, how will he not give us all the other things that we need? My invitation for you today, my encouragement, my appeal is that we would continue to prove the faithfulness of God in our life. He's already given us proof of his faithfulness. But guess what? We have an opportunity. Every day we face different situations. We go through different experiences in life that call us, that invite us, that stand there as a constant invitation to say, do you trust me? Do you trust me? Are you willing to trust me on this point? And again, our mind should go back to what God did for us. Our mind should go back to Calvary and say, yes, I can trust God because he's already given me the greatest proof of his faithfulness. Go to Lamentations chapter 3, and we will close and end here. Lamentations chapter 3. Lamentations was written by the prophet Jeremiah. And here, this is a passage, many of us know some of this by memory. But you know, what really strikes me about this passage that is found in the book of Lamentations, you really don't grasp the depth and the power of these words when you only read this passage, okay? When you just quote this verse and you detach it from its context, from the whole book, it kind of loses some of its force and power. Okay, so I encourage you at some point in time, go through it, read the whole book of Lamentations. You know, the name Lamentations is already giving you a picture of the content of the book. It's a sad book. It's a sorrowful book. It's a book describing the pains, the horrors that Jeremiah witnessed as he saw Jerusalem being destroyed. The people dying. And he describes all that sorrow. And in the midst of the book, right in the middle of the book, as he's expressing all that sorrow in the darkest moment of his life and his experience, he could still turn and say these words. It wasn't easy for him. Lamentations chapter 3, beginning with verse 21, "This I recall to my mind, therefore have I hope. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new." How often? Every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. in the midst of sorrow, in the midst of pain, Jeremiah could affirm the faithfulness of God. The faithfulness of God. And today we can make that, we could express that affirmation with even more certainty because we have the proof of, the greatest proof of God's faithfulness, which is He gave us His Son. Verse 24, the Lord is my portion, saith my soul, therefore will I hope in Him. The Lord is good unto them that wait for Him, to the soul that seeketh Him. Continue to trust in God. Continue to venture out in His promises. Claim them by faith and hold on in patience because God is faithful. And He's given us the greatest proof of His faithfulness.